My childhood sweetheart and I are both cave diving enthusiasts. The underwater world is dark and silent, and he is my only dive buddy. The night before our engagement, he invited me once again to explore the famous cave diving sanctuary. He had confessed his love to me here once before, but this time he was followed by Willoughby, the poor student in our class. He explained with a gentle smile, "Willow is curious about cave diving, so I brought her along to see the world." He paused and added, "Piper, Ming, you don't mind, do you?" I stared at the expensive, brand-new diving gear Willoughby was wearing and said nothing. I warmed up in silence and slipped into the water. When we descended to 50 meters underwater, one of them suddenly ripped off my regulator, and the other tore off my fins. Overwhelmed by terror and panic, I saw Willoughby gesture calmly at me. "Don't panic, Senior. This is Senior Yan's pre-engagement test for you." Icy, bone-chilling water flooded my mouth and nose instantly, and I choked on several mouthfuls before I could react. My nasal passages burned as if on fire. Through blurred vision, I saw Liu Yan and Willoughby step back, crossing their arms and watching me coldly. Liu Yan and I had known each other since we were children, not only because of the business ties between our two families, but also because our mothers were the closest of friends. They had arranged a child marriage between Liu Yan and me, and often brought us together to foster our relationship. Liu Yan was nice to me at first. I was pretty, well-behaved and quiet, the perfect doll he could show off to others. When he gave me a piece of candy, the elders would tease. Little Liu Yan already knows how to spoil his wife at just 10 years old. When he squeezed my hand, they would snicker, "Just like your father already. Taking advantage of your wife at such a young age." Liu Yan had always been sensitive. He acutely picked up on the subtle malice in those jokes. He stopped giving me candy and no longer helped me up when I fell. He deliberately dirtied my dresses, put bugs in my school bag, and tripped me just to watch me cry. He made his hatred for me abundantly clear, all to push back against that inexplicable malice. That changed when I was 16. I fell seriously ill and returned home after receiving treatment abroad. He suddenly became the older brother Liu Yan who used to play with me again. At that time, my parents transferred me to his class so someone could look after me. I had always been bright and precocious, so skipping a grade was no trouble for me. On the first day of school, I held my breath as I walked into the classroom, terrified that Liu Yan would humiliate me. I was no longer the 6-year-old little girl. I knew perfectly well that Liu Yan hated me, and had told my parents more than once that I didn't need anyone to take care of me. But my parents always insisted that a boy's hatred was just a disguise for love, and that Liu Yan and I were just having the usual squabbles between childhood sweethearts. "Your mother and I only have you as our daughter. You'll inevitably need Leo's help in the business world in the future. Even if things don't work out between you two, having a better relationship with Leo will be good for both families. Besides, Leo has grown up a lot lately. He asked about you just last time. You should give him another chance." My father's word was law, so I had no choice but to agree silently. To my surprise, when I saw Liu Yan, he really was a changed man. He was gentle and considerate, helped me fit into the unfamiliar class, and carefully tutored me in the lessons I had missed. When he found out I had fallen in love with cave diving, he didn't try to dissuade me like my parents had. Instead, he researched the sport and found an instructor, eventually becoming my exclusive dive buddy underwater. He said, "Piper Ming, I can't take away your hobby, that would be unfair to you. Since this sport is so dangerous, I'll keep you in my sight at all times. As long as I'm alive, nothing bad will ever happen to you." I can't describe how moved I was when I heard those words. Now the man who said them had ripped off my regulator with his own hands. Time ticked by slowly. Cave diving, as the name suggests, is a diving activity carried out in submerged caves or underground waterways. Unlike open water diving, the underwater environment in cave diving is complex and treacherous, and even the slightest mistake can cost a diver their life. I floated up a few meters, trying my best to ignore the two people not far away. I closed my eyes and forced myself to calm down. I let my right hand hang down, then swept it in a circle up along my thigh, and found my regulator floating in the water. The moment I put it in my mouth, decompressed air rushed into my lungs. My taut nerves finally relaxed slightly. I controlled my breathing, taking care not to inhale too much. At this depth, the gas in the oxygen tank is specially mixed. Inhaling too much too quickly can easily induce nitrogen narcosis or oxygen toxicity. Once my breathing had steadied, I turned my gaze back to the two people below. In the pitch-black water, all I could see were the beams of Liu Yan and Willowby's headlamps. Their 600-lumen brightness was like streetlights in a heavy rain, dimly marking their positions. I swam over to Willowby, trying to get my fins back. Fins provide essential propulsion, and at this depth, I would never be able to make it to the surface without them. When Willowby saw me swimming toward her, she actually flinched and looked over at Liu Yan. My heart sank and I followed her gaze. We had been down here far too long, and the bubbles from our exhalations had stirred up the sediment, making the water murky. Liu Yan's face was hidden behind the silt and his diving mask, so I couldn't see his expression clearly. In a place like this, a second felt like an hour. My heart turned cold. What was Liu Yan thinking? Did he want to kill me? Why? Even if the elder's jokes had annoyed him as a child, he could have just cut ties with me. Why bother getting close to me again only to try and kill me now? And we were supposed to get engaged tomorrow. We had known each other for nearly 20 years, and had been dating for a year. Had all his kindness to me over the past year been an act? I refused to believe he was capable of that. My strength was draining away little by little. My kicks grew weaker and I began to sink. In despair, I looked at Liu Yan again. He stared at me silently, then seemed to sigh and gestured to Willowby. After seeing the gesture, Willowby swam over reluctantly and handed me my fins. I put them on immediately and swam to the surface as fast as I could. As soon as I broke the surface, I tore off my diving gear. Before I could even catch my breath, a sharp, searing pain shot through all my joints, as if they were being wrenched apart. My heart sank. I knew I had decompression sickness. It is the most common illness among cave divers, caused by ascending from high pressure underwater without decompressing at different depths. The air inhaled into the body cannot escape in time, forming bubbles that block blood vessels, the heart and lungs. The most urgent thing was to get to a hospital immediately. I stumbled back to the car to call for help, but my phone, which I had left on the seat before diving, was nowhere to be found. My breath was hot, and I retched several times uncontrollably. I felt dizzy and disoriented, as if I were drunk or had a high fever. On the verge of despair, a sudden thought struck me. It was Willowby. Before we went into the water, Liu Yan had said it was safer for Willowby to lock all three of our phones in the safe. And the key was still in Liu Yan's pocket. About 40 minutes later, Liu Yan and Willowby finally finished their decompression and surfaced. I was curled up in the back seat of the car, on the verge of unconsciousness, still wearing my cold, wet diving suit. Willowby looked at me with feigned surprise. "Senior, how did you end up looking like this?" She turned to Liu Yan beside her with an innocent expression and asked, "Senior Yan, didn't you say Senior Piper was an expert cave diver? How could she forget to decompress on the way up? Even a beginner like me knows that." Liu Yan ignored her and walked over to me. He cupped my neck with his cool hand and asked in a concerned tone, "Piper Ming, are you in a lot of pain?" He paused and added with a hint of exasperation, "Why did you come up so fast? I told you it was just a pre-engagement test. Did you really think I would kill you?" He sounded just like the thoughtful boyfriend he had always been. But his sudden change of mood only filled me with dread. Willowby chimed in sarcastically from the side, "That's right, Senior. How could Senior Yan ever hurt you? You're breaking his heart by acting like this. Besides, you stayed calm and collected just now. You've passed Senior Yan's pre-engagement test. Congratulations, Senior. You're going to be Mrs. Yan soon. Go to hell. If being Mrs. Yan is so great, why don't you take the job?" Even though I had already made up my mind to break up with Liu Yan, I couldn't afford to turn against him right now in the middle of nowhere. I took a deep breath, grabbed one of Liu Yan's fingers, and put on a tearful, vulnerable act. "Brother. Liu Yan, my head hurts so bad. Can you take me to the hospital?" "Well," he hesitated. "Go back now? But Willow and I haven't had enough fun yet." There was a mocking smile and cold indifference in the depths of his eyes. "That bastard. I pressed my face against his hand and a stream of tears rolled down my cheeks as I blinked. But I really feel terrible. If you won't take me, can you at least give me my phone so I can call a taxi to take me to the hospital? Liu Yan looked at me fondly, seeming to waver. Willoughby cut in, but if Senior goes to the hospital, Uncle Yan and Aunt Yan will find out, won't they? Then we'll have to go back too, and we won't be able to stay here and have fun anymore. I snapped at her. Willoughby, who do you think you are? No one asked for your opinion. Willoughby had met Liu Yan at a classmate's party. She was a grade below us with an innocent, delicate appearance, but a stupid and malicious personality. I knew she had been clinging to Liu Yan. But then again, what man of his status doesn't have a few understanding, comforting flowers around him? If my father hadn't suffered from asthenospermia, he would have had a dozen illegitimate children by now, and would never have even considered letting his son-in-law inherit the family business. I only knew Liu Yan had a purely platonic relationship with her, and saw her as nothing more than an amusing plaything. So I never bothered to interfere with her presence. Little did I know that this would plant such a deadly hidden danger for me tonight. After being scolded by me, Willowby's eyes filled with tears. She bit her lip and hid behind Liu Yan. She said timidly, Senior, I told you a long time ago that Senior Ming doesn't like me. Liu Yan naturally saw right through her little act, but he didn't call her out on it. He just chuckled softly, tilted Willowby's chin with his fingertip and studied her for a moment. Then let go and rubbed his fingertips together before turning to me. Piper Ming, be reasonable. If you can't even tolerate such a trivial little thing, how will you ever be Mrs. Yan? He made his final decision. Wait for us on the shore. I'll take Willow down to the Hall of Ulysses to look around. We'll take you to the hospital once we surface. Our diving spot was the famous Bruno Blue Hole, a cave whose actual depth has never been fully explored. The Hall of Ulysses lies 100 meters below the surface of the Bruno Blue Hole, where divers can admire the magnificent and breathtaking karst formations. The Hall of Ulysses was never part of our original diving plan. He had clearly decided on a whim to make me suffer longer. This was no pre-engagement test, it was clearly an obedience test. He probably hoped I would die from decompression sickness, so he wouldn't have to bear the guilt of murder. Why did Liu Yan hate me so much? I let out a bitter laugh and asked, Why, Liu Yan? Do you really want me dead that badly? He wiped the sweat from my forehead and draped a thin blanket over me. His voice was soft. What are you talking about? I'm still waiting for you to be my bride. Isn't this what your parents and mine have always wanted? He turned to leave with Willowby, but I called out to stop him. Liu Yan. I tried to keep my voice steady. Even if you don't care about me, you should at least think about Willowby. The Hall of Ulysses is over 90 meters deep, with a complex network of stalactite formations. Even experienced divers find it extremely dangerous. Willowby has only ever done open water diving before. She has almost no cave diving experience. Are you sure you want to take her down there? After hearing what I said, a look of hesitation crossed Willowby's face. She tugged gently at Liu Yan's wrist. Senior Yan, maybe we shouldn't. Liu Yan ignored me. He looked down at Willowby standing beside him and smiled softly. What do you have to be afraid of when I'm here? He reached up and ruffled the top of Willowby's hair. His manner just as gentle and considerate as the Liu Yan I had known since we reunited at 16. Don't worry. I'll get you out of there safe and sound. The scenery in the Hall of Ulysses is beautiful. You deserve to see it. Willowby's face was pale, but she forced a sweet smile and said yes. With 2 loud splashes they dived back into the water. The night was deep and silent, save for the faint chirping of crickets seeping through the grass and trees in the mountains. I gritted my teeth and forced myself to stand up, fighting off the dizziness and headache. The only cure for decompression sickness is a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. And Liu Yan was deliberately delaying taking me to the hospital. In this situation, I had to find a way to save myself. Breathing pure oxygen can also relieve the symptoms of decompression sickness. Wrapped in the blanket, I rummaged through the car and finally found a canister of pure oxygen tucked into the side pocket of the front seat. God knows when. I breathed from the oxygen canister for a while, and the headache and nausea finally subsided considerably. I hadn't skipped decompression entirely. I just hadn't stayed long enough in my panic, so my symptoms weren't too severe. I hadn't skipped decompression entirely, I just hadn't stayed long enough in my panic, so my symptoms weren't too severe. Once I had regained a little strength, I took off my dress suit and shivered as I pulled on thick pants and a jacket. I also found the portable camping stove and boiled a kettle of hot water for myself. After doing all this, I finally felt a little better. I glanced at my watch and saw that it was already 3 in the morning. It had been an hour and a half since Liu Yan and Willoughby had dived back in. The dark surface of the water remained perfectly calm. There was no sign of anyone surfacing. I waited another hour, but the water still showed no movement. Something was wrong. The hull of Ulysses is only about 90 meters below the surface. Even if Liu Yan and Willoughby had taken their time admiring the scenery, they should have been back by now. Should I go down to look for them? Staring at the inky black surface of the lake, I hesitated. After resting, my body could actually handle a search at depths of 20 to 30 meters. But after everything that had happened tonight, I didn't think Liu Yan and Willoughby were worth risking my life for. The oxygen tanks they had brought would only last a maximum of 3 hours. If no one surfaced in another half hour, I could wait until dawn and call the salvage team. After much thought, I decided to go down anyway. Liu Yan might be a bastard, but I refused to become like him. I put my dress suit and diving gear back on. I also took an extra spare tank with me. The moment I slipped into the water, I couldn't help shivering. Even though the dress suit insulated me from the icy temperature, I silently swore to myself. Once this was over, I would never, ever go diving again for the rest of my life. I hadn't been down long when I saw a faint light. It was flickering not far below me, moving through the water in an erratic, strange way. My heart skipped a beat, and I kicked my fins hard toward it. When I got closer, my whole body went rigid. It was Willoughby's headlamp. Willoughby's eyes were half closed, her arms flailing wildly as she repeatedly bashed her head against a dead end. She had nitrogen narcosis. I swam to her as fast as I could and saw that her oxygen tank was almost empty. If I had been even 5 minutes later, she would have died down there. I quickly switched her to the spare tank and pulled her toward the surface. As we ascended, I glanced quickly around me. There was no sign of Liu Yan. When I got Willoughby back to the shore, she was still in a state of terror, her eyes vacant and her whole body shaking uncontrollably. She clung to me tightly with both hands. I slapped her hard across the face and demanded, "Where is Liu Yan?" Her eyes were unfocused and she babbled incoherently. It collapsed. Everything down there collapsed. What collapsed? The U-shaped passage. It's completely blocked. The guideline broke. I was so scared. She broke into sobs. The U-shaped passage she was talking about was the only entrance and exit to the Hall of Ulysses. It was a narrow, confined passage, and once it collapsed, there was no way out. A faint white light was beginning to glow on the horizon. I let go of her, stepped back, and sank to the ground in despair. I stared at the Bruno blue hole beside me. In the morning light, the water glowed an eerie turquoise blue. A string of bubbles rose to the surface occasionally, then quickly vanished into stillness. I closed my eyes. There was no point waiting anymore. Liu Yan wasn't coming back. What happened next? The man looked at the woman sitting across from him. She looked no older than 30, with elegant soft waves framing her beautiful poised face. No one would ever believe that this seemingly harmless young woman was already the head of both the Ming and Yan families. Piper Ming took a sip of her hot chocolate. She had developed a fondness for high-calorie drinks ever since that accident. Her eyes crinkled into crescent moons as she said softly, "You already know what happened next from the investigation report, don't you?" The man fell silent. He had read the accident report in detail. At dawn, the two women had driven to a nearby farmhouse to call for help. The Yan family had immediately summoned top divers from around the world to the Bruno Blue Hole to launch a rescue operation. It took the rescue team 3 days and 2 nights to recover Liu Yan's unrecognizable, waterlogged body. The accident analysis showed that due to the recent peak diving season, the Bruno Blue Hole had seen a large number of divers in a short period of time. Liu Yan and the 2 others had also stayed down far longer than planned during their first dive. Decompression stops in the same location cause bubbles to rise, trapping large amounts of gas at the top of the cave. This caused the limestone to lose its buoyancy in the water, leading to the collapse. After the collapse, according to Willoughby, she and Liu Yan had panicked at first. Liu Yan had quickly calmed down and tried to clear the rubble to dig through the blocked passage. Terrified, she had not helped him dig. Instead, she had turned and run to look for another way out. When she found no other way out, she returned to the U-shaped passage and discovered that a narrow gap had opened up in the rubble. She removed her spare tank and squeezed through, but did not see Liu Yan on her way up. Piper Ming had rescued her 35 meters below the surface. Following her accounts, the rescue team searched the area around the U-shaped passage repeatedly, and finally found Liu Yan's body in a narrow chamber in the Hall of Ulysses. When he was found, his headlamp and mask were gone, and he was wearing only his dress suit. Investigators speculated that after Liu Yan had dug a path through the rubble, his larger frame had prevented him from squeezing through the narrow gap like Willoughby had. In desperation, he had abandoned all his tanks, planning to pull them through after him once he was on the other side. But his movements had stirred up the silt, reducing visibility to zero. In the end, Liu Yan lost his tanks, wandered into a dead end in his panic, and died a painful death, deep in the Bruno Blue hole. That was the full content of the investigation report, and the official conclusion of the accident. Because Piper Ming had saved her life, Willoughby had testified out of gratitude that Liu Yan had indeed tried to kill Piper Ming during their first dive. To protect the Yan family's reputation, and to give Liu Yan a dignified send-off, the Yan family had gifted Piper Ming 20% of their shares as compensation. Using these shares as a foundation, Piper Ming steadily expanded the Ming family's power over the years, gradually eroding the Yan family's holdings, until she finally became the CEO. Ming sitting across from him, the man snapped out of his thoughts, twisting the delicate handle of his ceramic cup between his fingers, and I'd slowly, but I still have some doubts about this accident, and I hope you can clarify them for me, CEO Ming. Go ahead. The man held up 3 fingers, then slowly lowered one. First, why did Liu Yan act so abnormally during the first dive? You were about to get engaged. Killing you would have done him nothing but harm. There was no reason for him to do that, Piper Ming replied calmly. First of all, he didn't kill me. And second, Mr. Zhang, you're a man too. Don't you know some men like to set rules for their fiancés before marriage? I've never heard of such a thing, Atticus Zhang said. Piper Ming didn't take offense, smiling faintly. That just means you're a good man, Mr. Zhang. Though I was confused at the time, I've figured it out over the years. Liu Yan never intended to kill me. He just wanted to scare me. I'm the only daughter of the Ming family, spoiled and pampered since childhood. He was afraid I wouldn't submit to his control after marriage, that I'd be too unruly to be the perfect Mrs. Yan. So he tried to break me in this way. Breaking people through fear was Liu Yan's specialty. Atticus Zhang studied Piper Ming's expression subtly. Probing, after all these years, you still seem to hold a grudge against Liu Yan. From what I know, he was nothing but caring and attentive to you after you returned to China at 16. That's exactly why it hurt so much when the knife finally came, Piper Ming said. A faint smile crossed Atticus Zhang's impassive face. Which brings me to my second question. He lowered another finger. The serious illness that sent you abroad all those years ago was actually severe bipolar disorder, wasn't it? It was a rhetorical question. He had already made up his mind. I happened to obtain your medical records from that time. They show you exhibited manic episodes during your illness. At 13, you pushed your nanny down the second-floor stairs, and your father paid to hush it up. At 14, you stabbed your foreign language teacher's palm with a pen, and falsely accused him of inappropriate physical contact. Only surveillance footage proved his innocence. At 15, you skinned your mother's pet cat alive, and your father forcibly sent you abroad for treatment. You returned to China on your 16th birthday. He paused suddenly, staring at the perfectly sculpted smile on the woman's lips across from him, and asked quietly, Tell me, CEO Ming, does someone like that really fall in love? or act as kind, innocent, and vulnerable as you described. The room was filled with the rich aroma of tea. Unfortunately, Atticus Jang was the only one drinking the fine brew. Piper Ming continued sipping her hot chocolate. "You're very resourceful, Mr. Jung," she said slowly. "Just my trade. A man has to make a living," Atticus Jang replied. Piper Ming narrowed her eyes slightly, finally looking at him seriously. "Who is your client?" "A grieving mother, who only wants to know the truth about her son's death." "Ah, Mrs. Yan. She's certainly persistent." Piper Ming suddenly looked bored. "You can go now. Tell her the accident report contains the full truth about Liu Yan's death." Atticus Jung didn't move. "She's willing to give you 5% of the Yan family's shares." Piper Ming perked up, sitting up slightly. Her recent proposals had been repeatedly blocked by the board of directors, and 5% of the shares would solve all her problems.
"Still,"
she said, "that's all the shares she has left. She's willing to give up everything?" "That's right. She'll give anything for the truth," Atticus Jang added. "Your people searched me before I came in. I have no electronic devices on me. Nothing we say today will leave this room. No one but my client will ever know." Piper Ming's expression remained calm. She said only 4 words flatly: "Words are wind." Atticus Jang slid a slip of paper across the table with a phone number written on it. Piper Ming dialed the number and said nothing. A few minutes later, she hung up. She sighed and picked up the teacup in front of her for the first time. "I don't have any truth for you, Mr. Jang. But if you're interested, I can tell you a story." When Piper Ming was 13, she walked in on her father having an affair with their nanny. The nanny had taken care of Piper Ming for 6 years. She was gentle and thoughtful, knew how to soothe Piper Ming's temper, and stayed up with her on the nights she was terrified and couldn't sleep. To Piper Ming, the nanny was closer than her own mother. That day, Piper Ming stood in the doorway, expressionless, watching the nanny scramble out of bed, too flustered to even put on clothes, and kneel before her to apologize. She begged Piper Ming for forgiveness through her tears, pleading with her not to tell her mother. Having an affair with the master of the house was nothing. He was hardly faithful anyway. But being caught by the daughter was a death sentence. Piper Ming's mother would have her disposed of quietly, no questions asked. Her father pulled on his shirt, buttoning it as he walked past Piper Ming. He patted her head gently with his thick hand and said casually, "Be a good girl, Piper. Do Daddy a favor and pretend you didn't see anything. I won't touch anyone close to you again." Piper Ming said nothing. From that night on, she lay awake until dawn every single night. A month later, she found a used pregnancy test in the nanny's drawer. 2 bright red lines stared back at her. What a nuisance. She had actually liked this nanny. Still, Piper Ming told no one. The next day, she pushed the nanny down the 2nd floor stairs. Atticus Jung asked, "What about the piano teacher and the cat?" "He did make unwanted advances toward me." "Did he make advances, or did you lash out after he rejected your confession?" Piper Ming narrowed her eyes. "That's a very serious accusation to make against a 14-year-old girl, Mr. Jung. I apologize." "It's fine." Piper Ming shrugged. "But I think it was the former. Otherwise, why would he have killed himself out of guilt later? Suicide doesn't always mean guilt. Sometimes it just means there's no other way out. I suppose that's a matter of opinion." "And the cat?" Piper Ming sighed. "Another one of my father's mistresses showed up at the house that day. She was out of line and my mother was furious. I just took the blame for it." Atticus Jung stared deeply at Piper Ming. Since he had sat down, the curve of her smile had not faltered once, no matter how sharp his questions. 15 years ago, he might have been able to get the truth out of her. But Piper Ming was 36 now. Years of navigating the cutthroat world of business had made her shrewder, more calculating. More like her father. "You're very good at telling montage lies, CEO Ming," he said. "Everything you say is true on its own. But when you put them all together, they form a complete and utterly misleading falsehood." Piper Ming chuckled softly. "Perhaps." Atticus Jung glanced at his watch. "It's getting late. Time for my 3rd question." He asked in a low voice, "Did you really get decompression sickness during that first dive?" Piper Ming's expression didn't change. What do you mean? You've done so much research, Detective Jiang. Surely you obtained the hospital's diagnosis from that time. As an expert cave diver, you know decompression sickness can only be diagnosed clinically, Atticus Jung said. You did show mild symptoms, yes, but what if they weren't from the first dive? What if they were from the second? You mean the dive where I rescued Willoughby? Piper Ming leaned back in her chair and pulled a thin cigarette from her pack. She glanced at Atticus Jang before lighting it. Do you mind? Not at all, Atticus Jung said. While Piper Ming bent her head to light the cigarette, he continued, No, not that one. You dived a second time after Liu Yan and Willoughby went back down. You dived 3 times that night. On the second dive you followed Liu Yan and Willoughby, caused the U-shaped passage to collapse, then I brightly ascended from 50 meters without decompressing to give yourself mild decompression sickness. Piper Ming exhaled a ring of smoke, took 2 more puffs, then stubbed the cigarette out in the ashtray beside her. You're being ridiculous, Mr.
Jiang.
If I had dived 3 times, why wouldn't there be any data on the dive computer? Atticus Gang paused. You could have used a different set of gear. Piper Ming smiled. You need evidence to make accusations like that, Mr.
Jiang.
Do you have any? Silence fell. After a moment Atticus Jung said, No, I don't have any evidence. But before I came to see you, I paid Miss Bai a visit. She told me a story too. Oh? Piper Ming sat up straight again, looking intrigued. Go on. Atticus Jung said, She told me that the eldest daughter of the Ming family invited her to a senior class party, with the sole purpose of seducing her fiancé Liu Yan. You told her what Liu Yan liked, and dressed her up exactly the way he preferred. She was confused at first and didn't understand why you would do that. But you only said one thing. Don't you want to be Mrs. Yan? She did want it. So she kept quiet and did as you asked. But Liu Yan never took the bait until 3 months before his engagement to you. That's when she overheard him on the phone with Mrs. Yan. On the phone, Mrs. Yan had warned Liu Yan sharply to keep his nose clean and not cause any scandals before the engagement. Willoughby saw Liu Yan lean against the railing and smile lazily. Don't worry, Mom. I've been pretending this whole time. I'm not going to mess everything up at the last minute. Willow. She's pretty enough, I guess, but I'd never give up Piper Ming for her. The Ming family only has her as their daughter, and Uncle Ming is old-fashioned. He won't let a daughter inherit the family business. Once I marry her, both the Ming and Yan families will be mine for the taking. Then I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. Who's going to stop me? He said contemptuously. Women. They're nothing compared to power and wealth. Willoughby faintly heard Mrs. Yan say approvingly on the other end of the line. I'm glad you understand. She told Piper Ming everything she had overheard. Piper Ming said nothing, just gave a calm hum, then told her, Act cute with Liu Yan, and tell him you want to learn how to dive. Once she had learned to dive and gone cave diving with Liu Yan a few times. Piper Ming said to her, on July 15th, Find a way to make Liu Yan invite me to dive at the Bruno Blue Hole. Willoughby froze. But that's the day before your engagement. The young lady smiled sweetly, but her eyes were cold. That's exactly why we need to do something memorable. Willoughby used the excuse of a pre-engagement test to get Liu Yan to invite Piper Ming out. For some reason Liu Yan decided to bring her along too, and told her to pull off Piper Ming's fins at around 50 meters depth. Terrified, she immediately told Piper Ming what he had planned. Piper Ming just said lightly, Don't worry. Nothing bad will happen. And sure enough, nothing bad happened to her. Because the one who died was Liu Yan. What a shame, Piper Ming smiled. Why didn't she tell this wonderful story back then? Now it's just a trivial anecdote, nothing more. Atticus Jung said, Back then, her brother was in a vegetative state being treated at a hospital owned by the Ming family. Of course she didn't dare speak up. Now that her brother has passed away and she's older, she has nothing left to fear. Piper Ming asked, How much did Mrs. Yan pay for this story? It's 1 million. Atticus Jung said. Piper Ming held her teacup and sighed. What a bargain. Atticus Jung asked, You must have considered silencing her back then, didn't you? Why did you let Willoughby live? Don't make baseless accusations, Mr. Zhang, Piper Ming said. I never intended to kill anyone. Willoughby had already swum up on her own. Of course I saved her when I saw her. That makes sense. If both of them had died, you would have been far more suspicious. Atticus Zhang said, leaving a rival alive made the perfect witness. Piper Ming made no comment. These are all just your speculations, Mr. Zhang. Atticus Zhang stood up. Truth or speculation, it doesn't matter. I only came here to hear a story. Now that I've heard it, I should be going. When he opened the door, he was stopped by the bodyguard standing outside. He turned back to Piper Ming. CEO. Ming? Piper Ming asked softly. Where are my shares? Atticus Zhang said, my client will transfer them to you as soon as I relay the story to her. Piper Ming smiled. I don't like late payments. Since you've already heard the story, you can pay me now. Atticus Zhang was silent for a moment, then took his phone back from the bodyguard and made a call. A few minutes later, Piper Ming's phone rang. She listened casually, then waved her hand to signal the bodyguards to let him go. Atticus Zhang took a step forward, then turned back and asked half-jokingly, You won't have me killed once I leave this room, will you, CEO Ming? What are you talking about? I'm a law-abiding citizen. Piper Ming pressed her hands together in front of her chest, and made a show of saying Amitabha. Besides, I've converted to Buddhism recently. Atticus Zhang finally left. The butler sent the maids in to clean up the room and brought Piper Ming a fresh cup of hot chocolate. He bowed and asked CEO Ming, Would you like the fish for tonight cleaned thoroughly? Piper Ming yawned and nodded tiredly. Be careful. I don't like fish with bones. The butler nodded and left. But Piper Ming called out to him before he could go. And the fish I released over 10 years ago, clean that one too. Yes ma'am, stories, truths, who cares? He has his story and I have mine. Whoever survives gets to write the truth. This story warns us, human nature cannot stand life or death tests. Greed and arrogance always reap what they sow, To seize the heroine's property and control her after Maria G. The hero snatched her breathing regulator during a deadly cave dive on their engagement eve, humiliated her with a life or death test, and deliberately delayed her treatment. He thought he controlled everything, but underestimated the heroine's sobriety and resolve. She turned the tables, using his arrogance and indulgence toward his lover to leave him buried in a collapsed cave, and finally took over both families' businesses. Never take others' kindness for weakness, nor play with lives. Every evil act digs one's own grave.